BizBlend listeners, where business, mindset, and bold conversations collide. Now, listeners, today's guest is Clay Moffat, an ex Navy weapons tech, behavioral coach, and author of The Trust Trap. He has spent 15 years helping high performers stop outsourcing their sanity and take radical responsibility for their lives. Now, listeners, Clay doesn't pull punches. He teaches the neuroscience of trust, the psychology of betrayal, and why most people keep, screwing themselves over even when they know better. So, if you have ever ignored a red flag, trusted the wrong person, or felt betrayed by your own decisions, buckle up because this conversation is your wake up call. So, with that, Clay, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us today.
That is quite an intro, Simon. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it is so hard hitting yet funny in some or the other way because this has happened to me, Clay. I have been betrayed. I have judged my own decisions. And my father says that you learn from your own mistakes. Ideally, it should be you should learn from others' mistakes, but you keep learning from your own mistakes and still you are making a mistake once again. So there is no room of improvement here. So that sometimes really kind of derails me when I'm thinking about why does this happen, or why am I like this. So with that, Clay, let's start with your journey, and then we'll talk about our topic. So what exactly brought you to the world of understanding this trust dynamic, and then also pen down your book, The Trust Trap?
Perfect. May I ask if we can take a quick segue before we do that?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay, so you said something which immediately caught my ears, and you said, "Why do I keep doing this? Why does this keep happening?"
Yes.
So the issue when you say something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you're asking your brain a question, and its job is to serve you. And as soon as you ask it a question, it will go and find you answers. So if you ask a question, why do I keep doing this? It will show you all the reasons why you keep doing it. And it's going to continue to compound the negative feeling. So it's going to leave you in a worse off place. So instead, you would be better suited to ask yourself, how did I create this? And then followed by, how do I create something better? Because then you're now shifting into the mechanisms at play as to what got you there in the process. So then you can start to intersect with the process. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, it does. It does. Instead of just lingering on to this question that why do I keep doing this? Why did I do that? What should I do now? How should I do this? I think it's more analytical and more practical.
Well, it also gets out of reasons because reasons start to form beliefs. And so you start to cement in beliefs about yourself that you're clumsy or stupid or forgetful or attentive or naive or, insert whatever other negative adjectives you could use to describe yourself. And you start
Yeah,
cementing those further in. So it creates more of a hold on you.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally makes sense.
Now,
Absolutely makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for helping that, Kay.
with regards to my story,
Uh-huh.
uh, it's a very long one, but I'll give you the condensed version. Condensed version was when I left the Navy, I went into oil and gas, and around about 2013, 2014, I had been studying self-development for a couple of years already, but I was still working in oil and gas. I hadn't quite left my role as a subsea engineer.
Okay.
But what I found was I kept on getting passed over for promotion, and it wasn't the first time. It happened in the military as well. And then I also happened to get in trouble in school, and the only common denominator through all those scenarios was me. And it was kind of humbling because you've got to put your ego in check and go, okay, well, this is on me. And I got into this world because
Mhm.
I wanted to figure out how to get what I wanted. I didn't get into this through some altruistic belief that I'm going to heal the world and make people better and do good things. I can promise you I had absolutely no interest of that on my radar whatsoever when I started. None, not an inkling. I wanted to know how to get what I wanted because whatever I thought I wanted, I wasn't getting it. And I started studying persuasion. I started studying NLP. I started studying cognitive biases and psychology, and that eventually led into neuroscience. But I wasn't really getting any results for the first couple of years because all I was focused on was language patterns on how to manipulate people. And the issue that started to come to light very quickly was that if you're still a bit of a piece of trash, you're kind of trashy, you don't really look after other people, you don't really have other people's best interest at heart. It doesn't matter how good you are with language patterns. People are going to be turned off by you because it's just going to be this, for lack of a better word, a vibe, but like this atmosphere that you carry with you when you walk into a room, and it's just going to repel people. And that's kind of what was happening. And the more I delved into persuasion, the more it led me into NLP. And the more I went into that, the more I actually started to change and started to peel off the layers that had been keeping me stuck and held at. And what ended up happening was I started changing. When I started changing, I noticed the language patterns started working. When they started working, I started getting more results and clicked that, okay, if I start changing myself, become a better person, it's going to work. And then people started noticing how rapidly I was changing, like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." And then it felt really, really good to help people get what they wanted. And so it started to shift and become this mechanism. Okay, like I should just help these people get what they want. They're paying me. They're getting exactly what they want. This is a good situation. It's a good exchange. I'm feeling good about it. And so that's
Mm.
kind of what happened. I doubled down. I built a coaching practice. I got up to 7 figures. I then let my ego get in the way. You know what? I'm going to design and develop an app. I designed and developed an app and then blew $500,000 and crashed and burned. And I also tanked my coaching company because I spent so much time on the app that I neglected my clients. So then I had to rebuild again. And I've been rebuilding for a while now. I've been blind in my left eye since 2010. And in November last year, my vision started disappearing in my right eye. So by January this year, I couldn't see really. I was legally blind. Uh, if you were standing 6 feet in front of me or 2 meters in front of me, I wouldn't know it was you if we'd been friends for a long time. I just couldn't recognize you. My vision was that bad. Even 1 meter was kind of challenging.
Okay.
And I spent thousands of dollars and went to multiple specialists, and no one could tell me what was wrong. And then in February on the 23rd, I went to a specific specialist, and he was 100% convinced that it was a simple procedure, which is a cataract surgery. Now, cataract surgery is a very routine procedure, but what most people won't know is that the way I lost my vision in 2010 was from cataract surgery. So I was very apprehensive about having another one, and I was very realistic with the prospect that on the other side of the surgery, I might not be able to see again. And I wanted a method and a methodology that would be able to coach people as a standalone unit that doesn't require any input from me. So
Mhm.
the best thing that came to my mind was a book. And so I was told that if you could only write one book, what book would it be? You should write that book. And that was literally my scenario. There was in my mind, the only thing I could do was write this one book. And so that's what I did. I thought it's one of the most useful processes, exactly what you just said. You've experienced something. It's very hard for me to have met someone that
Mm.
hasn't experienced some kind of betrayal, hasn't looked back and seen all these red flags, because hindsight's 2020, and wished that they'd done something different. And so the book became an operator's manual, if you will, so that it never happens to you again, and that you can learn the systems and understand the processes and navigate that so that you become clear, free, and liberated on the other side.
Wow. It's quite a journey, Clay. Quite a journey. I know that, it can be really a challenge to condense all the events together in just a short period of time. But thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Yeah, I mean, and you say that trust isn't a character trait, it's or permanent. You know, it's a strategy. So for our listeners, for me as well, if we can break down what that actually means for people who think I'm just too trusting or I have trust issues. You know, personally, I also keep on saying that after so many um, events of betrayals and kind of completely opposite side of having those expectations in terms of situations or people whom I've worked with or whom I have had a relationship with, I feel like yes, I have trust issues. So how would you uh, break that down as a strategy?
That's an awesome question, and my answer is probably going to be a bit counterintuitive. So first of all, I trust everyone. Every single human being on the planet I trust, and I'll get into how that's possible in a moment. The second thing is betrayal doesn't exist unless you're talking about self-betrayal. And trust is not permanent. Trust is a mechanism based on a mutually beneficial outcome, and you don't have trust issues. You merely have what I call pattern blindness, and you haven't trained yourself to see the patterns and to pay attention to the signals as they're going along. You see, because as a characteristic, that's to say that nothing's changing and nothing is fluid, and the only constant in the world is that it's changing. That is literally the only constant is change. So to say, okay, I'm going to enter this agreement with someone, and let's say it's a business deal, and we're working together. Well, we made that agreement when we both had a certain amount of money, when we were both of a certain relationship status, when we were both of a certain qualification level. And then 4 years down the road, we're completely different people. Maybe I've got two kids, maybe you've got no kids, maybe I'm wanting to start settling down, you're wanting to start speeding up. And so the incentives for us working as hard as we used to have shifted for us. The values and what we start to want and share have shifted because of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm more drifted towards my family because the business is already making enough money. You're more drifted to making more money and like getting this thing because you really want to have the impact and turn it into a Fortune 500 company. And so a lot of people would say, oh, well, the person who had kids betrayed the other person. And then some people would say, well, the person who's like pushing, he stayed true to the vision. The other person is the one that caused the betrayal because they're no longer, and all it is just a misalignment. You were working together, you were working in parallel towards the same outcome. And along the way, things happened in life. And if you're paying attention to it as they happen, then you can see it happening before it does happen. You can segment, you can disappear and segue into a similar line, renegotiate, and still have a fantastic relationship with that person. There's no need to go into all the turmoil. But what typically happens is if you break it down from the neuroscience point of view, if you look at how we have evolved, no human being on this planet was built to thrive. I don't care what anyone tells you. The way we have evolved through evolution was to survive, just to reproduce and carry on the species. And that is proven by how the brain works and how the body responds. So we are machines of energy conservation. We do not want to expend energy unless we are almost guaranteed a result. So your brain, my brain, everyone's brain, Sana, wants to learn everything as fast as it can and then turn it into an automatic pattern so that we don't have to think about it. And the first time you learn something, you're paying attention to everything. And then the second time, and the third time, the fourth time, now it becomes a habit and you gloss over certain things. So when you're driving a car and you first learn how to drive, you're really paying attention to every single thing on the road and it requires all of your attention and all of your focus. But as you've been driving for 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, you don't need to pay as much attention because a lot of things have become automated. But does that mean mistakes happen? Yes, absolutely, because you have these shortcuts in the brain that skip over certain features that should have been there. And that's what happens when you label someone as trustworthy. So if I call you trustworthy, so we're clear, I'm not saying that you're not, but if I was to say, Sana, yeah, she's trustworthy. What happens is we're in this business deal still, we're moving down the road, and our values have started shifting in slightly different directions, and we're no longer running in parallel. We're kind of diverging from each other now. If I'm not paying attention to how my behavior has shifted and how your behavior has shifted, and we're not kind of aligned in the same way, that will most certainly end up in a place where either one of us or both things that the other one has betrayed each other. But if you can pay attention to it, and if you can notice what's going on in real time, the person doesn't stay back and work as late as you anymore. And they say no to traveling for business as much anymore. And they start doing these mechanisms, you're starting to see real time. That's evidence. But if you put it in the box of, oh no, they're my business partner, we started this together, and you hold that frame, you're setting yourself up to fail. They're not trying to screw you over. They're not trying to do you over. People don't wake up in the morning and go, you know what? Today, I'm going to figure out how I can stuff over Sana. That's what I'm going to do today. That is my mission for today. It might feel like it,
Mhm.
but if I was a betting man, and I'm not, but let's pretend that I am for a moment, for each time that you've been betrayed, tell me honestly, straight to the point. If you look back, can you see the red flags? And were they obvious? And did you ignore them?
Yeah, I mean, if I would have been aware, then I would have definitely seen the red flags in there.
Right, but even if you look back, right? Even if you look back, you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's so clear to me right now. I see this."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Because the person's no longer in that frame. You hold them in a different frame, so now it becomes obvious. And so what I teach people is I teach people the body language side of things, so the nonverbal communication, and I teach them the linguistic analysis so that they can start assessing things real time. I give them the fundamental frameworks to show them trust is fluid. Honesty is fluid. Loyalty is fluid. Growth, freedom, all these values, these labels that we use, they're all fluid concepts. And the higher you go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the more inclusive they become and they include more people in your circle. And the lower down you go, when you get down to survival, it's pretty much just going to be not even your family, it's going to be just you. And it doesn't make you selfish, doesn't make you evil, doesn't make you maniacal overlord. What it does is it shows you like this is how we have learned to survive. Operation number one is survival.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I so much agree with that. Even if it's with respect to Maslow's hierarchy or its survival. And in today's context, I think this is so much more relevant right now. So much more relevant, survival.
Very much so, especially with a lot of stuff that's coming out with the way that tech's advancing. There's so much misinformation going on out there. There's so much happening with people in relationships. There's so much happening with how the world is becoming so politicized and opinions are coming in and coming left, right, and center. There's a lot of ways that people are finding that they're and getting hurt for what I foresee as something that could be easily averted if they were to start paying attention and not just coast on autopilot, which is what the brain likes to do. You naturally want to do this. By default, your brain wants to expend as little energy as possible. So it's not, again, that you're lazy or stupid or naive. It's that your brain is doing what it does best, conserving energy, keeping the system running.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Clay, you have worked with leaders who keep repeating toxic patterns despite being smart and successful. Why do you think high performers in particular they struggle with seeing betrayal coming? And now this question is kind of clear to me as well, but I would still love to hear from you. What are your
Sure.
thoughts?
So the biggest thing with high performers and leaders is the majority of them are very smart and they suffer from what I call smart people syndrome.
Okay.
Smart people syndrome think that they can logic their way out of everything and they can logic with people and they can reason with people logically. And it doesn't work. People are driven by emotions. And that doesn't, again, make them stupid and it doesn't make them less evolved. What it does mean is the more you have the ability to regulate your nervous system and regulate the emotions that you have and the higher your EQ, the more stable you're going to be, and therefore the further ahead you're going to be. But at the same time, you're still driven by emotions. And so these people, because they are so rational and logical in their brain, they find themselves getting caught off guard when someone does something because their brain's so used to rationalizing, like, nope, nope, it's definitely not going to happen. Like, I would see it coming. I'm smart enough. And the ego kind of gets in the way. Like, people would not. Have you ever heard about people that are set up as a mark for a con? And so for a con artist to set someone up, and
Uh,
con artists say this, and it's very simple. Con artists talk about how the second you think you can't be conned, you're gone.
That's the place where they get caught. Exactly.
Right. And that is exactly how betrayal works. The second you think you can't be betrayed, you set yourself up to get slammed into the ground because you're no longer looking for it and you're no longer paying attention.
Mm. That's like the irony.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Oh, and Clay, what exactly is meant by outsourcing our own sanity? I mean, you have said that betrayal often happens because people outsource their own sanity. What exactly does this look like in business? And how do we stop it? I mean, does it once again connect to this particular statement that he just made, that um, the time or the moment where someone thinks, okay, you cannot trust, you cannot break my trust, or you cannot con me, that's the time when they actually get conned. Is it connected to this or something else?
It is connected to that, though it's slightly different.
Okay.
So people stop trusting their own eyes, their ears, their gut and experience, and they hand over the steering wheel to someone else with a louder voice or a shinier title, right? So every decision needs to be run by a coach or a guru or your boss or a therapist or worse, a Instagram quote with a sunset background and this Buddha watermark kind of thing, right? So they become spectators in their own lives. And this is a mechanism that comes into play. Like this happens. I was absolutely slammed by this when I built my app. So I outsourced the authority to someone else. And so we're clear, everyone does this. So are you aware of something called the Milgram experiment?
No, I'm afraid no.
Okay, so Stanley Milgram was a psychologist. I'm gonna mess this up. I'm pretty sure it was at Yale where he did it. Stanford was a prison experiment. Yep. So it was at Yale. So he went and he ran through this process, and basically the mechanism for him wanting to do it was he's of a Jewish background, and he wanted to understand why people kept on saying the same thing at the Nuremberg trials. They kept on saying, "I was just following orders. I was just following orders. I was just following
Oh,
orders." And everyone on the outside looking is like, "That's pathetic. There's no way that's true. It's not happening." So he ran this experiment, and they got random people in there off the street, and over 80% went to voltages that were going to kill the person. And they heard this person screaming on the other side. They heard this person like writing in pain, and they kept getting these answers wrong in this test. Obviously, it was made up, but they didn't know that. And they kept on turning the voltage up and shocking this person. And over 100% went to lethal levels. Around about 80% went all the way up to the max, but over 100% would have killed someone. And this process has been repeated 15 to 20 times, all with almost identical results. Human beings respond to authority. And if you see someone as an expert, you'll just start to take things in and automatically accept that. And that's kind of what I mean by handing over control and outsourcing it. It's like, oh, it's easier. They're the expert, so they know what's going on. So I don't need to do any work myself. And so you can actually override what is going on for you. Now, obviously, there's going to be times where that's useful to outsource to someone who knows more than you. At the same time, if you've got alarm bells going off like crazy inside and the expert says to go jump off a cliff, you should probably pay attention to the alarm bells. But some people wear this dysfunction like it's an identity. And instead of using the tools like, and the stuff that I teach to sharpen their sanity, they actually don't use them all, and they just dodge responsibility. They hand it over to someone else. And it
Mm.
basically becomes this, for lack of a better word, a slow suicide of agency. And it's like you're asking someone else to feel for you, to think for you, to decide for you, and then they're basically living for you, right? Because you're just outsourcing everything to someone else.
Oh, that's very true. No, and I want this to land hard for entrepreneurs. Trusting bad hires or co-founders or advisors because they kind of ignored their gut. So that's how I would connect that with this.
So it kind of goes deeper than that, Sana,
Okay.
right? Because with entrepreneurs, sometimes what happened with me with the app, I speak from personal experience, was I became so committed to the project that when someone said, okay, we could probably make it work, I just latched onto it because I came so driven to the outcome. Like, I have to make this work. I gave people my word. I've got my reputation to uphold. And so I was ignoring all these other elements because I was just so driven to produce what I said I was going to produce. And what happens is people can get blindsided by that because of the authority mechanism at play. And some others also never really learn how to hold their own clarity without outsourcing it the second it gets uncomfortable. And I kind of fell into that trap as well, right? Because sanity, it's not some form of consensus, right? It's not a group project. You either own it or you lease it from people who profit from your confusion.
Yeah, that's really really profound. And so, um, to conclude, I mean, if trust is actually a strategy play, then what's what are some of the steps someone who is listening to us and they are kind of having, oh my goodness, this is something really new. I didn't know that. If they wish to take those first steps to stop setting themselves up for betrayal, whether in business or their life, personal life, what would they be?
Okay, very simple. The first thing that anyone has to do is to recognize and have the awareness that is not a personality trait.
Okay.
So you need to audit the pattern, not the person. Before you hand someone trust, before you frame them as a trustworthy person, look at your own pattern of who you give it to. Who do I keep trusting that lets me down? What's the common thread? The betrayal never starts with them. It starts with your template, with your assessment. The second thing, stop negotiating red flags. Stop ignoring them. Stop justifying them. You don't need more data. You need less denial. If you start to feel a twinge, then you go, okay, pay attention and ask. If something feels off, pay attention and ask. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. The next is you want to switch from good intentions to aligned behavior. It doesn't matter if someone means well, ask how they're acting, how they're showing up, and start to see what's going on. That's not to say that they're horrible, evil people. It is to say, okay, are your actions simultaneously moving you in parallel towards a common objective? If they are, and it's moving there, and you're wanting a similar end goal, you can likely trust that person to continue doing the thing that they are. If they keep deviating, you can likely trust that person to keep deviating because obviously something that they want is different from what you want. The next thing you want to do is you want to basically, how do I say this? Reclaim your internal authority. So, are you overreacting? Am I being too sensitive? If you start doing these kind of things, you start cutting off your own instincts. It's not
Mm.
about handing anyone a blank check. It's about writing the terms. So you want to trust yourself to be able to walk away. Otherwise, you're going to keep bargaining with people who know they can stay and are going to bleed you dry.
Yeah.
And the final thing I would say is to use trust as your filter mechanism, not a reward. Trust is not something you give to someone. It is a filter to watch for behavior and this lens that you start with to observe if the alignment actually exists. Don't ask, can I trust them? Ask, do their values, do their incentives line up for us to get something similar so this partnership, this relationship makes sense?
Mm. Some of them, really, really hard hitting, Clay, yet um, so overlooked, so overlooked. So thank you so much for sharing this. I think this conversation definitely leaves our listeners with some actionables, not just theory, but if they would like to explore more, if they would like to connect with you and get a hold of your book as well, The Trust Trap, what's the best way to do that?
The best way is just go to trusttrapbook.com. That's the easiest way to get the book. We'll have more info on the site. And if they want to connect with me, the most active thing that I'm on now is X. I was never really active on social. I deleted them all when I started losing my vision. So most of them are all pretty new. I deactivated Facebook and LinkedIn. I thought I deleted them. I didn't. But I've got a brand new X account and I spend more time on there than the other two. And my username is at Moffat Clay, Moffatclay.
Brilliant. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Clay, thanks for bringing the truth to this, to trust. I think what you have shared, and as well as the book Trust Trap, it, they are all a mirror for ourselves to look deeper down within us. So thank you so much for bringing this up.
Thank you very much for having me, son. It's been a pleasure.
So, listeners, if you are ready to stop betraying yourself, start building trust that actually works for you and reclaim your power. And of course, grab a copy of Clay's book, The Trust Trap. And until next time on BizBlend, I would like to say that trust isn't given, it is built, broken, and then rebuilt by design or by default.